Okay, so I am painting this image of these two pears, and I'm going to change it some from the photograph. These pears are backlit in my kitchen to get this reflection on my countertop. I don't have mirrors like we have at school. So the shadows are everything on this side is dark, right? So I'm going to look at a different reference photo and I'm going to paint my pears differently so that they have a cast shadow that goes in this direction. But because there's nothing much else going on, it's just the two pears, I'm going to do a 2-color wash in the background. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that. I've mixed up my paint for the top half color. So I'm going to have I'm going to think about using a primary triad. So my pears are going to be yellow, and so that I was thinking that I should have blue and some sort of red in the background. So I have a blue mixed up, and I'm also going to make a red in a paint cup that I'm going to mix like special. So it's not going to be like super red. I'm going to use a little bit of, so this is something that you can do for your painting too. You can mix a custom color. So I'm going to take a little bit of this orangey red, and I'm going to mix in a bit of the pinky red as well. And I'm just going to make a color. I'm just going to mix color until I'm sort of reasonably happy with the kind of the tone of it. And I could just have to add a little bit of just put a little bit of purple in there. And now I don't really want it so bright, so I'm going to put just a little bit complementary color in. So I'm just going to mix in a little bit of green. Just going to try to get it to kind of mellow a little bit by mixing a little bit of green in. So there, now I have kind of a muted red sort of color that I can use. So I have my two paints mixed up. And I'm hoping that my blue is darker than my red, but I could have to do more than one coat. So I'm going to come back out here to my painting now, and I'm going to decide, do I want the top blue and for it to gradually go to red, or do I want it the opposite way, that I want the top red and to gradually go to blue? Obviously that's a just choice that I have to make on my own as I work on my painting, right? So I'm going to test this paint too for color intensity. We want to make sure that when we're painting these washes that we have enough water and not too much pigment. But I definitely have kind of a lot of water and not quite enough pigment, so I'm going to grab a couple more licks of paint. So this is something that you can do too. You can kind of test what intensity of paint do you have in your cup. So I mixed a little bit more blue back in here now. You can see I'm really making sure to stir it around, and it's still pretty light, meaning I have a lot of water. But I'm going to go ahead and use it just with the idea that I could have to do more than one coat. So I'm going to set aside my red cup, and I have this at an angle, so I have it actually propped up on something so that I can paint and not have to worry about the camera. So a couple of reminders when we're working with these washes, right? I want to make sure I have my brush really wet, and I want to make sure that when I go to paint that I get this big drip edge. This big drip edge is the key to making a smooth wash in my background. Alright, if I'm not painting with that big drip, I don't have enough paint to make a smooth wash. So I think that's part of why some of you guys are struggling a little bit to make sure that your washes are smooth. I also have to make sure that I'm painting fast enough that I'm not letting that edge dry. So you can see as I'm going carefully around my pear stems here, I'm trying to make sure that I'm moving that down before it dries. Now because I want to fade, I'm going to grab a little bit of water. So you can see I'm kind of moving along both portions. And I want this to start fading out, so I'm just rinsing my paintbrush with some water, and I'm pulling this down now with just some clean water so that my wash continues, but my paint starts to thin. Okay, my paint starts to thin, and I'm trying to keep them all together. A little bit more water for over here. You can start to see that paint is starting to lighten up over on this side. I'm also going to take now and just sort of squeeze my paintbrush dry and get rid of this last little bit of paint. And I need to squeeze again, but I need to move this down further. So you see I'm trying to keep it even all the way across my sheet. So now I rinsed my brush and I squeezed it dry, and you can see that with that squeeze dry, it's like you're vacuuming paint. So instead of putting paint on, I'm pulling paint off or lifting paint with that squeeze dry brush. So what I'm doing is just sort of fading this out into my sheet as much as possible. So you can see over here where I added a lot of the water, I'm having this kind of stripe effect. So I have to decide what I'm going to do about that. And so the best way to fix some of these problems is to wait until your washes are dry, because you can't fix a wet wash. You can fix a dry wash. Okay? So my wash here is a little wet still, but I'm going to go ahead and flip my sheet. And I'm going to leave some of those problems, and I'm going to show you in class how to fix a few of those. But remember, I wanted to do two different colors, so I'm going to come back now from the bottom with my other color of paint. So, knowing that my background will get darker because I'm going to put more paint on there. Okay, we want to start lighter than we think we want to end up. So this is going to be lighter than I want it to be too. Look, right away I'm seeing I don't have that drip edge, so I need more paint in my brush. I want to have my paintbrush be like it's almost dripping with the paint. I'm not getting that drip edge, so you want to make sure that you're using enough paint and keeping enough paint in your brush that it's like it's almost going to run. That's the key to making that wash as flat as possible, is keeping this big, like, drip rolling down your sheet. So as soon as I start to see that I don't have a drip, I need more paint. Okay, you'll also see that I'm trying to work in sections at a time. If your paint dries while you're doing this, you're going to end up with a line, just automatically. You will end up with a pigment break. I went over the edge of my pear here, but I'm not going to stress about it because I know I can fix that in the painting phase later. So now I'm going to just grab a little bit more water. A little bit of water. Rinse my brush, a little bit more water. And you can see I'm going right into my blue now. Just rinsed my brush for a little more water again, and I'm going to move this along right up and in into my blue, okay? And I'm just going to keep going until I'm just sort of out of water. I'm going to do that over here as well. So you can see my blue's going to change as I move some of that red up into there. And partially I'm coming back through here just because I know I have problems in my blue that I'm going to have to fix. So a round of water isn't going to hurt. But if I stop, I'm going to get a bloom edge. So you do have to just kind of keep going. So we want to try not to have an edge bloom, which is when you put water back on the paper. So I've rinsed my paintbrush now and I've squeezed it dry, and like I said before, I kind of painted over a corner of my pear. Oh shoot, I put my hand in my painting. I can go back and I can fix that, but now you can see that I have this gradual change from red to blue, oops, I need to come back here the tape edge and make sure I get this extra paint off the edge of the tape so it doesn't like make a bloom back on there either. So there you go. No table line, 2-color wash. And I'll show you tomorrow in class how to adjust and fix that blue.